A young woman stumbles upon a massive stone gate buried in the Mexican mountains, until it rips her into a war-torn world lost in time. Hunted by masked figures, haunted by stolen memories, and manipulated by a sinister force known only as the Gatekeeper, she races through collapsing camps and ghost-filled forests. Reality shifts, identities blur, and the line between dream and curse dissolves. A mysterious warrior with glowing white eyes appears. He may be her only chance. But can she trust him, or is she already too late? In this episode, every step is a trap, every memory a weapon. You're not just watching, you're falling in with her. I never planned to be in Mexico for more than a few days. I was following an old map, more out of boredom than belief. The locals in Santa Lazaro told me to leave the mountains alone. Something about ancient seals and curses. I thought they were being dramatic. By the third day, I found it. A massive stone gate wedged into the canyon wall. Carved symbols shimmered faintly when touched, like heat through glass. I should have turned around, but the air felt charged, like I was being watched, like it wanted me there. I pressed my palm against the center symbol. The world folded. My breath vanished, and then I was standing in a valley that didn't belong to this time. The sky looked bruised, distant mountains were glowing red. Strange banners flapped in winds that smelled like ash and honey. I wasn't alone. A man in bone-colored robes stared at me from across the field. His face was covered by a white mask with black lines spiraling across it like veins. He raised his hand slowly, and I collapsed. My head felt like it was being rewritten. When I woke, they were calling me by another name, Iva, and I remembered things that weren't mine, memories of kingdoms fighting over a glowing crystal, the heart of the gods. It pulsed in my mind, like it was inside me. I didn't trust the voice that echoed when I slept. I think it was him, the Gatekeeper. I started seeing flashes, visions of him watching me in mirrors, whispering from the water. One night I wandered beyond the firelight. My legs moved on their own. The forest was silent except for a low hum. That's when I saw him, Bastian. He looked like he had walked out of a painting. Cloaked in black, white eyes glowing faint under his hood, scars running along his arms like vines. He didn't ask who I was. He just said quietly that I was stolen, that someone was feeding on my memories to open the path to the dark fold. He told me I had touched something forbidden, and now it was unfolding through me. He offered his hand. I hesitated, then I ran. Back at the camp, no one noticed I'd been gone. They just looked at me blankly like dolls pretending to be people. I felt sick. In my dreams, I saw the Gatekeeper's face cracking, something inside crawling forward. I think I screamed in my sleep. Bastian found me again under the blood moon. This time I didn't run. He told me the truth. I had awakened the seal, and the war was restarting. The Gatekeeper, once bound, now had my shape and voice. He would use me to walk into the living world, unless someone stopped him. I remember his last words before the sky split. He said I had to choose which life to keep. Mine, or the one that already began inside me. Then he vanished into smoke. I woke up back in the canyon, dust in my lungs. My fingers still glowed where I touched the gate. It was gone now. No one believes what happened. But every time I close my eyes, I hear that voice. And it always knows my name. I haven't told anyone about what happened after I left the canyon. At first, I convinced myself it was just some hallucination from heat or stress. But the dreams kept getting clearer. There was always a hallway, endless and echoing, with no doors, just flickering lights and a voice behind me saying my name the wrong way. Iva. That name again. Not mine, but it feels familiar in ways I can't explain. And then there's the boy. I don't know him, but I see his face every time I sleep. Black hair, dusty shirt, looking at me like I've failed him. I don't remember what I did. Maybe it hasn't happened yet. 3 weeks after I got back to Arizona, I met Eli. He worked at a local restoration center where they handled rare artifacts. I went there to ask about a stone fragment I brought back, something I shouldn't have kept. He said it looked pre-Mayan but older, like it came from a civilization that didn't have a name anymore. He was curious, too curious. I didn't tell him everything, just that I'd found it near the mountains. He offered to help me trace its symbols. That's when we met Kira, a grad student working under him. She had sharp eyes and a way of listening that made you feel like she already knew what you were going to say. When I showed her the carving, she went pale. She didn't say anything for a while, just stared at it. Then she said something like, "I saw this in my uncle's journal. He died 10 years ago near that same region. They never found him." I didn't know what to say. None of this made sense. That night, I heard tapping at my window. I live on the 3rd floor. I stayed still for a while, hoping it was wind or a branch. It kept going. Tap, tap, like it was waiting for me to acknowledge it. When I looked, nothing was there. But the glass had a small print on it. A perfect circle, like a fingertip. Eli called the next day, asking if I was free to meet. He said he had found something about the gate. We met at his office, where he showed me a sketch from an old explorer's log. The description matched everything I saw. Symbols that shimmer, a hum in the air, the pull of time bending inward. He looked at me and asked if I'd opened it. I didn't answer. He told me the gate wasn't just a portal. It was a test, and whoever stepped through would carry its echo forever. I didn't understand what that meant, but he asked if I'd had strange dreams. I lied again and said no. I didn't trust anyone, not yet. Later that week, Kira disappeared. She left work in the afternoon and never came back. Her car was found with the door wide open, keys still inside. Eli didn't seem surprised. He just looked tired. I asked him if she told him anything. He said she'd been acting distant, saying something was following her, something faceless. I went home that night and found my apartment door slightly open. Everything inside was untouched, except my mirror. A circle was drawn across the surface, the same as the one on the window. And in the center, scratched faintly, was the word return. I left immediately and stayed with my cousin Maya, who thought I was just paranoid. She made tea and told me I needed sleep, but while she talked, her voice dropped once. Just a syllable out of place. She called me Iva, then smiled like nothing happened. I asked her about it later. She swore she never said it. I don't think she was lying. I think something was borrowing her voice, or hers was already gone. I saw Bastian again 2 days later, standing across the street from the library. Same cloak, same glow in his eyes. He didn't move, just watched me until the traffic light changed. When I looked again, he was gone. Eli came to my place the next day. He said something had shifted. The gate's presence was bleeding through. I asked what we were supposed to do. He said we had to find the original binding site, the place where the heart of the gods was first hidden. There's a map, one that only responds to certain bloodlines. He believes I'm one of them. I don't know if that's true. I'm tired of being someone else's answer. But something is coming. I feel it. Not in the wind, not in the dark, but in the way people say my name now. Like they're not sure which version of me is standing in front of them. And sometimes I'm not either. The sky had a reddish tint that morning. I thought it was dust, maybe smoke from the wildfires out west. But when I looked closer, the sun didn't seem to move. It just hung there, low and heavy like it was watching. I didn't say anything to Eli. I thought maybe I was just tired. We'd driven north after a clue turned up in an old monastery record. Something about the convergence point where the seal was first broken. The road twisted through forests that didn't match the map. We passed a woman in a blue dress walking barefoot in the opposite direction. She didn't look at us. Kira's disappearance was still fresh in my mind. Eli didn't talk much during the drive. He kept glancing at the rearview mirror like he expected someone to follow. By the time we reached the cliffside chapel, the light had shifted again. Shadows stretched wrong. The air smelled like stone and salt. The chapel had been abandoned for decades. Ivy grew through the broken stained glass windows, and the floor was soft with moss. I felt a pressure in my chest the second we stepped inside, like I'd forgotten how to breathe right. In the corner stood a figure in a gray cloak. We hadn't seen anyone on the way up. Eli froze. The man turned slowly. His face was pale, too still. His eyes were white, no pupils, but he wasn't blind. He looked directly at me, said my name, not my real one, the other one, Iva. His voice was quiet, but it rattled the air around us. He said the path had been opened, that the gate was awake now and listening. He told me the heart was no longer hidden, that I had become the key. I wanted to run, but my legs didn't agree. My memories blurred again. For a second, I wasn't in the chapel. I was in a throne room, surrounded by voices chanting my name. Eli grabbed my arm and pulled me back. We left without speaking. Back at the motel, he told me the man was a watcher, servants of the fold. They don't live in time like we do. They wait in between it. I couldn't stop shaking. I tried to sleep that night, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw the watcher's eyes glowing behind glass. The next morning, a girl was waiting by our car. She couldn't have been more than 16, wearing a jacket too big for her and boots covered in dust. She said her name was Naomi, said she'd seen us in her dreams, that she knew where the map would lead next. We didn't question it. Something about her voice felt rooted, like she wasn't lying. She led us up an old mining path and into a cave sealed with wooden planks. Inside, carved into the rock, was a star-shaped symbol identical to the one on my wrist. Naomi placed her hand over it, and the cave pulsed with faint blue light. Eli stepped back. I felt dizzy, not from fear, but recognition. I'd been here before, or maybe a version of me had. Naomi said we had one more night before the boundary fully opened. After that, if the heart wasn't claimed, it would claim something on its own, something close. That night, the motel clock skipped backwards. Phones stopped working. We heard a knock at the window every hour, always soft, always in sets of 3. Naomi wouldn't sleep. She sat in the corner, staring out like she was waiting for a storm. Around 2 a.m., the lights flickered and the smell of burnt wood filled the room. Outside, Bastian stood under the street lamp. The light buzzed faintly, catching the edge of his hood. He motioned once. No words. We followed him into the woods behind the motel, where the fog curled low like it was hiding something. I heard a whisper every few steps, sometimes my own voice. He stopped at a clearing where stone pillars circled a hollow space. In the center was a pool of black water, still, silent. Naomi said this was the mirror basin. If I stepped in, the truth would rise, but it wouldn't be kind. I didn't want to see it, but I knew I had to. I knelt and placed my fingers in the water. My reflection didn't move, then it smiled, slowly. Wrong. The gatekeeper's voice filled my mind, soft and clear. You are me, you always were. I tried to pull back, but my hand wouldn't move. Then a light surged behind me. Bastian raised his arm and a wave of heat pulsed through the clearing. The reflection shattered. The voice stopped, but it left a silence deeper than sound. I didn't speak the whole way back. I don't think any of us did. The next morning, Naomi was gone. No note, no trace, just a circle drawn on the motel mirror. Again, return. And I knew we were running out of time. The air had weight that morning, as if the world itself was bracing for something. I sat by the window of a rented cabin in Mesa Ridge, a remote town we stopped at after the trail led us nowhere. Eli looked exhausted. He hadn't said much since Naomi vanished. He kept watching the horizon, like he expected it to shift. That night, we stayed in a 2-room shack built near a long-dried riverbed. The locals didn't speak much. One old man named Harold kept staring at me from behind the counter of the diner, whispering something about the river being dry only on the outside. I didn't ask what that meant. I didn't want to know. Before I fell asleep, I heard scratching behind the walls. It wasn't mice. It moved like fingertips searching for something. I laid still, breathing slowly, heart racing with a quiet dread I couldn't name. Sometime after midnight, I opened my eyes and found the mirror in the corner had fogged over completely. A name had been traced into the mist. Mine. Not the one I was given, but the one the gatekeeper used. Iva, that word again. I stepped closer, and the mirror trembled slightly. I reached for it, and the glass pushed back. It pulsed like skin. I yanked my hand away. Eli knocked on the door a moment later. He looked pale, said he couldn't sleep. He felt watched, said he kept dreaming of a hallway full of ticking clocks, all showing the same time. 4:06. We sat outside on the cabin porch as the sky shifted from dark blue to gray. Neither of us spoke for a while. The next day, we drove east into the dry plains, following a set of coordinates Naomi left in Eli's notebook. She must have written them before she disappeared. The land was empty. No houses, no animals. The silence made your ears ring. Eventually, we found a circle of stones half buried in the sand. In the center was a piece of obsidian shaped like a teardrop. When I touched it, the air cracked open, just for a second, like something old had stirred. The sun dimmed, just slightly, as if remembering something it wanted to forget. Eli said nothing, but I saw the way his hands trembled. Later that evening, we stayed in a roadside lodge near the outskirts of a ghost town called Layton. There was only one other guest, a woman named Camille, who said she was a field historian looking into migration paths. She wore thick round glasses and had a red scarf that never left her neck. At dinner, she leaned in and whispered to me, said she recognized my face, that she'd seen me in a mural buried beneath a collapsed church in Oaxaca. A girl painted with silver eyes and black hair, holding a star inside her chest. She said the artist labeled it as the opening vessel. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I blinked, I saw glimpses of Camille's face twisted in shapes that didn't belong to her. At 2:17, the hallway outside our room began to hum, a low tone, steady and soft. I stood by the peephole. There was no one outside, but the humming came from right beyond the door. The handle turned once, then stopped. I stepped back, breath caught in my throat. A soft knock followed, rhythmic, 3 times, then silence. I didn't open it. I just waited. The sound faded eventually, but I never really felt alone again after that. The next morning, Camille was gone. Her room locked from the inside, no sign of her in the cameras. But the front desk clerk swore she saw her walk through the lobby, car fluttering like smoke. We left soon after, not saying goodbye. Eli didn't even look back. Our next destination was a location Camille mentioned, a salt lake dried centuries ago, said to be the resting place of the boundary stone. We reached it by nightfall. The wind there didn't blow, it held its breath. We stood in the middle of the cracked surface. The moon hung too low. I stepped forward and whispered my name, the wrong one. The ground trembled. A circle lit up around my feet. Eli pulled me back as a shadow rose from the salt beneath us. Tall, silent, faceless. It held out its hand but didn't move closer. I don't remember what happened next exactly. I heard a voice in my ear, one I knew. It sounded like Naomi. She said the gate was no longer behind me, that it had moved with me, inside me. When I woke, it was morning. The shadow was gone. Eli stood over me, eyes distant. He said we had less time than we thought, and from now on the path wouldn't appear in maps or signs. It would appear in mirrors, and only if I was willing to look. I woke up in a motel outside Juniper Crest. The room was cold, though the heater buzzed all night. Eli sat on the edge of the bed, staring at a notebook filled with circles. Every few pages the pattern changed. One looked like a spiral, another like a cracked mirror. He didn't speak until the sun came up. He told me the map was gone. It had faded from the page sometime during the night. Naomi's coordinates, the watcher marks, everything had dissolved into blank paper. We were back to guessing. That same silence crept in again, not empty but heavy, like something was thinking on the other side of it. We drove north without a destination. The road stretched flat, sky hanging low, everything washed in gray. I thought I saw someone walking beside us for a second, long cloak, silver mask. When I blinked, they were gone. Eli said he hadn't seen anything, but I think he was lying. By noon, we reached a crossroads with no sign, just 4 paths leading into different kinds of silence. We picked the one shaded by twisted trees. It led to a hidden valley with standing stones surrounding a shallow pool. The air shimmered above it like heat, but it was cool to the touch. Eli stepped away, said he had a feeling something was about to remember us. I knelt beside the water. My reflection was clear. I touched the surface and saw flashes. The canyon, the gate, Naomi, a girl holding a burning heart. Then nothing, only the echo of a whisper, one I couldn't place. Later, we stopped at an abandoned ranger station. There was no power, but it felt lived in. A blanket draped over the couch, a half-burned candle still warm. We stayed anyway. That night, I heard footsteps pacing above us. The building had no second floor. I whispered Eli's name. He opened his eyes and nodded. We listened. The sound shifted. Walking turned to dragging. I held my breath. Whatever it was never came down the stairs. When the sun rose, the noise stopped. We left quietly and didn't look back. By the 3rd day, we found signs again. This time etched into tree bark, shallow spirals with a single dot in the center. Eli said they were markers from the old court, a forgotten order sworn to protect the gate's resting place. We followed them deeper into the forest. We met someone at dusk, a man named Corin. He stood by a stone bridge, holding a lantern with flickering violet flame. He said he'd been waiting for us, that the gate's reach had grown wider, and soon it would be able to call without needing a voice. He knew my name, both of them. He said I was a bridge, not a lock. That scared me more than anything else. A lock closes, a bridge lets things through. We camped near a frozen creek that night. Corin explained the gatekeeper wasn't trying to escape. It was trying to become, to take shape in a world where time was linear, that it needed memory to solidify, and that was why it kept reaching into mine. I didn't sleep. The stars looked wrong, like they were rearranging themselves. One blinked, then disappeared, then another. I counted 14 before the sky settled again. Eli dreamed of fire, said he saw a tower rising from a field of ash and someone standing at the top wearing my face. By morning, Corin was gone. Only his lantern remained, burning low but never running out. We took it with us. Its glow kept the silence away, at least for now. We headed west toward a place called Bel Harrow Ridge, where an old sanctuary had been sealed behind a landslide. When we reached it, the path was already open, as if someone had cleared it just before we arrived. Inside, the air was damp, the walls etched with layers of forgotten language, symbols of time bending, memory breaking, identity split across planes. At the end of the corridor stood a door made of stone and glass. My name was etched across the surface, not the one I'd grown up with, the other one, the one the gatekeeper gave me. Eli asked if I wanted to turn back. I didn't answer. My hand moved on its own, reaching for the center. I felt warmth, not from the door, but from something inside me reacting to it. A pulse, a pattern, like something ancient recognizing its reflection. The door didn't open, it breathed. And in that breath, I remembered a face I'd never seen in waking life. Mine, but older. Eyes dark with regret, voice calm, warning. She said I had one more choice left. Then everything went quiet again, but not empty. It felt like holding my breath at the edge of a dream, waiting to fall or fly. And I still haven't exhaled.